Welcome to Beyond the Ballpark from Hurrdat One. I'm Kristyna. This episode, we're breaking down how Mother Nature influences every inning from dugout strategy to stadium wins. We've got the science and the stories to back it all up. Joining me to break it down are two experts in the field, pun intended. First, Brigit Mahoney, Hurrdat One meteorologist and weather contributor. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Along with Darin Ruf, current collegiate baseball coach at UNO with a history in the MLB. So I can't think of two better people to dive into this. This spurred from a conversation that Brigit and I initially had, just talking about the way science works and the way it feels like things should go. And then it dawned on us that we wanted to have some real life experience.
Sure.
These things are actually true. So we'll get right into it. First, we're going to talk about how weather affects gameplay from both the science and strategy angles. So I'd ask, again, Brigit and Darin, feel free to chime in if your experience is different or aligns with this. But how do humidity, temperature, wind all impact how a game goes?
So scientifically, I can speak on it. I don't know if science necessarily always matches up with actual play because
I'm very eager to see. Yeah,
there's more elements in it than just one thing, but heat, humidity, that allows the ball to travel farther. And I would say in a vacuum, if you don't have winds coming in at the hitter. So it kind of depends,
Sure.
I would say. But Darin, do you notice that heat helps you hit more home runs?
I mean, I think it certainly allows the ball to travel further. Thinking too, I mean, I know over the summer months is when you see a general spike in offense, and it's due to a lot of factors, obviously, just guys getting more comfortable hitting and things like that. But certainly I think the weather plays a major factor in that.
Yeah. So because we had this theory, perhaps, that humid days, which feels like it should be opposite because the air feels very heavy on those days. There is a theory that can lead to more home runs. Have you seen that be, from your experience, directly correlating, or is it just really kind of based on, the player, all the factors that go into it too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, obviously, you might have a better scientific opinion.
Today, Darin.
I seem to hit a few more homers over the summer months. I think, like your body feels better and more. You're able to move freer and easier. So like outside of just the ball traveling a little bit further, I feel like you just maybe generate a little bit more power because you feel a little bit better.
The muscles are warmed up,
Exactly.
maybe a little bit more.
Easier to warm up.
Right.
Yeah, and it's also that time in the season too, right? That it's getting warmer, so you're more practiced. You have more games under your belt. So yeah, that makes sense. But on the topic of weather, Darin, how does your strategy evolve as weather maybe changes during the game too? Baseball, famously a long game, could start with weather one way and then change. Yeah. Suddenly you have a whole different set of factors to consider. But how does that change your strategy as a game goes on, if there's weather to consider?
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on wind and all, I think wind is the biggest factor. So now that I'm a coach, it's a lot easier to tell the players how to, like, hey, the wind's blowing in. Let's try to hit more line drives today. Or the wind's blowing out. Like, you can feel free to throw it up in the air a little bit and let it go. But when I was a player, I mean, I obviously knew those things, but it's a lot harder to control or change something that you practice regularly to say, hey, I'm not gonna do this today because of the weather, or I need to do this. It's a lot harder to change.
Yeah.
But as a coach, I can try to tell them to do it. So
Does it shift your perspective because you've been the player and now you're the coach? So it kind of makes you think about what it was like when you were a player, but now you're kind of calling the shots, or trying to at least.
So yeah, I immediately, and I keep in contact with a lot of my former coaches, and I wanted to text them all like, I am so sorry for everything I did to you that made you like say like, God, what does he do? Like, and I'm like, man, your jobs had to have been so stressful because of all the stuff that I put you through.
And you were just one of many.
I was one of
that
many,
they're having to. And to your point, weather is such a it's so out of your control. So when you were on a national stage, even playing in the MLB, how does that amplify the pressure that you feel or your decision making when you have very passionate fan bases looking at every move you make.
Sure, yeah, and I think like we talk about the offensive side of things. Mainly when we talk about weather and humidity, heat, cold, whatever. But like catching a fly ball on a super windy day is extremely difficult. And I played in San Francisco for a little while. And I mean, they started every home broadcast with this is how the wind's blowing. And it's blowing this way in left field, this way in center field. And it's swirling. And it's just like hitting is one thing, but catching a fly ball when the winds are swirling and start of the game is going to be different than the end of the game. And so, yeah, has a big factor in the outcome of the game for sure.
How much time does it usually take you to adapt to the weather conditions?
Yeah.
Like, is there an inning where you're really starting to dial in, or is the weather changing by that point where it's even hard to say?
At the beginning of the games, typically you see the harder elements. The wind is a little bit stronger. As the night goes on, for the most part, the winds will die down and it becomes a little bit, less impactful and easier to just go out and play. But yeah, I think overall it's has a big impact, obviously.
You're just adjusting in real time.
You are.
And it is like a good point. Of
Gently.
course, we kind of focus on hitting because of course, that's where some of the action occurs. But it does change how you think about, too, being in the defensive position where a ball's going to go, how's it going to float.
Yeah.
And you just have to, do math in game, which seems hard anyways, but
pretty much
part of that balancing act.
Yeah.
Brigit, can you think of any examples of where weather visibly changed a game? We have some men's College World Series, immediate ones where rain was a factor.
Back in 2024, so just last season, I know, I think it was June 15th where Texas A&M was one of the teams. There was a 4-hour rain delay, so it was an evening game as well. So 6 o'clock was supposed to be the first pitch. It ended up being, I think, like 10:15. And then the 9th inning final run there was 1:13 in the morning. So how does late nights, in addition to weather, how does that affect players?
I mean, you're not used to playing at 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's definitely, maybe a college student, I don't know. Maybe they're used to being up at that time.
Resilient,
I like to think that they're not, that they're getting their rest for the next day.
In bed
but
10 p.m.
God knows. Yeah, exactly. So
you don't know.
I know. So, but time change. And then especially like if those guys are getting done at 1:15 in the morning, they're not getting back to the hotel until 2:15.
Yeah.
Especially after a College World Series game, it's going to take time to wind down. And then if you're back the day game the next day, or, it's, you're not getting the recovery you need.
Yeah.
But again, it's College World Series time and you're running off of adrenaline anyway.
Exactly. So. Yeah. It's a little rest, a lot of practice.
Exactly.
Into those. But kind of on that note, Darin, do you have a memorable weather influenced game that you played in or coached or something where you're like, this is really messing up my style here? Yeah.
Oh, man. Played in a lot of, like cold, snowy games. The one that
baseball in Nebraska specifically.
I think it was sophomore or junior year. We were playing Nebraska at Rosenblatt Stadium, and it was like, I think they have rules in place now to not play in such cold temperatures, but
do you remember the temperature?
I don't remember the exact temperature. I'm sure an almanac somewhere has it.
The internet.
But it was free. I mean, I remember I was playing first base and I had a line drive hit to me, and it's like my mind told me to react and try to catch the ball, but the ball was like in right field before I could even move my glove.
It's
but
brutal.
It was a great Nebraska game, so we wanted to play it and everything. But I think now administrators lean towards
safety.
Let's move it back just let's move it back to a better day where people will actually enjoy coming to watch the game.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
Right. It's not only for the players, but also the spectators as well. The thing about weather, though, with a team and, your opponents, it's all on an even playing field because you're all going through the same weather conditions, right?
yes,
Yeah.
and as a coach, that is what we try to remind the players
Right.
the whole time. And it's the one thing you don't want to hear as a player, but it's like it's true that what
Right.
you're experiencing is what the person over there is experiencing.
Yeah.
So
Shared suffering.
exactly, that's a great way to
Isn't
put it.
that the spirit of
Misery
baseball,
loves
too?
company.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you think, Darin, do teams traveling to different climates have an advantage or disadvantage, especially when we're talking about climates like the Men's College World Series? I think of your SEC teams that are used to playing in the heat and humidity
Right.
versus, to your point, some of the early games in at least Nebraska, the Midwest, some of them don't get played because of cold and snow. So is there a competitive advantage in playing different climates, especially when you're coming to play on the biggest stage?
At that point in the season, I would lean towards no.
Okay.
Early in the season, when
Sure.
the northern teams go down and play the teams that have practiced outside for 2, 3, 4 weeks and have gotten in scrimmage, I would definitely say that there's an advantage to that. But by the time you get to games 60 to 70 on the season, for the most part, for the teams that make it to the College World Series,
Yeah.
I feel like by that point you should be kind of dialed into what you're
Yeah.
doing.
The planes kind of be, especially by tournament time, right? Because it's hot
Exactly.
humid most places of the country at that point. So,
Exactly.
yeah, that makes sense. So on that note then too, what do we think, I would ask your expert opinions, is the best weather to play a baseball game?
Oof.
You could pick any weather.
Any weather. I mean, when I was in San Francisco, it was unbelievable.
Every day is probably beautiful in San
tough.
Francisco. Yeah.
It was tough. Yeah, I guess city-wise, if you could play in San Diego every day, that would be the best
Kind of ideal. Yeah.
in the world.
So do you want a little bit of humidity? I know it's different as a pitcher.
Mhm.
Don't they need a little bit of moisture on that grip, or is that not true?
Oh, man, I
Oh.
think they used the sticky tack stuff to get
True. Okay.
Yeah, that's improved the grip too.
That did. No, I'm not kidding because I'm serious at the same time. But I don't know as much humidity as like when you go to Colorado or something and the air is
Okay.
thinner, the ball certainly will travel further, or like a higher elevation.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, just really nice days in general are great days to hit. So
Okay. And so, I mean, Brigit, from a scientific standpoint, you think the best days to play baseball are on those hotter, humid days, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for more runs, I would say definitely so, because the science behind it, heat is less dense than colder air. So hotter air, less dense. It allows the molecules to move more freely. And then humidity, it's reverse of what everyone would think, because those muggy days, it feels like the air is heavy.
Yep.
But when you put more water into our air,
Mhm.
H2O actually weighs less than nitrogen and oxygen. So the more you
Okay.
inject into the air, the humid air is actually less heavy, even though it feels like it's heavier.
Right.
So that allows the ball to travel farther. So yeah, I would say if you're aiming for home runs, you want a hot, muggy day. But if you're a player, I don't know if you want that. Or, if you're a spectator like me trying to enjoy my beer on a nice 75 low humidity day, I don't know. So
I just
up
have
for
to
debate. I should
qualify
say.
that question too.
Yeah.
What exactly is it you're looking for to decide
Right.
what a perfect game
Yeah.
day is?
exactly.
So then on that, I want to do some myth busting here. And we kind of already talked about it, but just with some of these generally understood rules of, how you have more action in a game,
Right.
or it's going to slight the way things go. So the first one is hotter day equals more home runs, maybe?
Sounds like it.
For the
I would
reasons
say
that you
true.
said? Okay, true. What about, and so humidity equals more home runs. We think also true based on the science that Bridget just provided too. Cold weather, is that bad for pitchers? Or cold weather, does that impact the grip for pitchers? You're saying no, because there is now extra
There's other ways
in place.
to-
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, certainly I know on cold days, pitchers that I have dealt with or heard complaining from
Sure.
do say that it is tougher which is how those other substances got into the game, I think,
Right.
obviously, is because they needed to find a way and on humid days in cold weather
Yep.
to be able to control the ball a little bit better.
Be able to get that done. What about do you think rain delays affect play quality?
Probably.
So we're on your medium, Darin. You're shaking your head. Yes.
Yeah, I think anytime you disrupt a routine of some sort,
Makes sense. Yeah.
whether that's on the front end, the back end, the middle of the game, that it throws guys off a little bit.
Maybe mentally and physically.
For sure.
On both ends.
Yeah. You're ready to go out and suddenly, or you're watching the weather too. I know it's happened before where it's still a sunny day. You don't see any rain, but there is the promise of it being the hour. So then you're weighing, do we start? Do we have a pitcher go out? Then what do we do? I mean, that also.
And you have, especially in Omaha, you have the Omaha, so it looks like it's coming, and then it just kind of forms a nice, you're like.
That's another Mythbusters, I would say, the Omaha.
The Omaha.
Yes, I'd like to, Brigit, do you think the Omaha
no,
is steady? We're going to put you on the record now with it. Does the
Omaha
hold down or hold true in ways that people seem to think it protects the city? No?
I mean, if you look at any, okay, here's my diplomatic response. If you look at any given weather event, if it goes around the city, you're going to say, hey, the Omaha is real, but weather happens anywhere and everywhere. So I would say, I personally say it's not true, but, when you think about Omaha as such a small point on the map, it's easy for weather to miss it since it's such a small percentage of the world.
Track around it.
I don't know.
And when all of our eyes are on it is that, kind of 2 weeks out of the year that all of our eyes are on it too during the men's World Series. Yeah. So then when it skirts or misses us, we said the Omaha did. Yeah. Omaha did it again.
Yeah,
we did it. What about and Darin, I think you touched on this too, but another myth, does wind help fly balls carry?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Check that one off the list too. And I think these are all points of conversation to your point where there's a lot of different factors that play in, but weather is always part of the conversation when you're looking at how a baseball game goes too, which is part of the fun of it. I mean, the unpredictability, as well as you hope your athletes are prepared. You hope they're well rested.
Well rested and hydrated.
Then there's the factors that are always going to be out of your control. Now switching specifically to Charles Schwab Field, we started talking about this too. Especially as we watch weather kind of track around it. But how does that specific stadium orientation and wind flow affect play that happens within that ballpark?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I'll let you start with that one.
Well, the stadium's oriented southeast, so I think it got a little bit of flack from baseball fans when it was situated that way, because specifically in the summer months here, we have winds that are typically out of the south. So with it oriented that way, the wind is at the batter's face. It's making it harder for the batter to hit that line drive or that home run out of the stadium. But, that's all in theory.
Yep.
I don't know if do you feel like it holds true that the orientation messes with things?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think along with wind, one of the things, and I haven't played a night game or at Charles Schwab, but like you see different fields where there's shadows because of the way the sun sets and things like that. And along with wind, the wind blowing in, the way the shadows are from like the glare off the batter's eye, or like the way it cuts in between like the pitcher and the hitter. All those things factor into how well you can see the ball. And then ultimately how well you hit the ball. So
these things that you probably can't help but, even if you're not playing, you probably can't help but look for these things too.
Oh, yeah.
Affects every kind of element of play.
Mm-hmm.
And Brigit, what makes a stadium pitcher friendly versus hitter friendly then? I think you touched on it there, but
a lot of it has to do with the orientation of the baseball stadium or field, and then also with how the typical winds come into or out of the stadium. So if you have, wind at a batter's face, or that would make it harder to hit a home run. So that would be pitcher friendly. But if you have wind at a batter's back, that will help the ball travel. So that's another element. It's pitcher friendly versus batter friendly, but you think about it, both teams are pitching and batting, so it's not like one team has an advantage.
Competitive advantage. That's a good point.
And also, like, when you get into bigger stadiums, like Charles Schwab's a little bit bigger of a stadium. If you go to a major league stadium, it's even bigger. Like the way the wind circulates in the stadium too, like it could blow out or feel like it's blowing out to a certain height, and then you get to a certain height and it's actually like gonna affect the ball to bring it back into the field of play. So just the way it swirls, the way everything happens in that semi-enclosed space.
Yeah.
Is there a professional stadium that stands out in your mind that behaves kind of different than all the other ones with the weather and how it's oriented?
I mean, I can only speak to the ones I've played in mainly, but like I said earlier, in San Francisco, like you're kind of right on the bay, and so the way the wind blows into the stadium and then like kind of directs off the actual structure itself and blows and swirls. And I remember in the COVID year, there were no fans in the stands, and they opened up a lot of areas that are typically closed off. And so it seemed the ball like flew a lot better that year than in previous years. So just all those.
Interesting. Even the pandemic kind of shifting things.
Changing things even as the game goes.
Exactly.
And the UNO field, I seem to recall, is pretty new. Is that right?
Yeah.
How has that been? Is that situated in a way that has affected how you play the game, or do you feel like you have a pretty universal experience at that field?
I mean, just from this season alone, we've had games where the wind's blowing in drastically, and it really affects the game. And then on the other side, we played St. Thomas earlier this year, and the wind was blowing out pretty steadily at 20 to 30 with gusts up to like 40, 45. And it was like a 25-11 game, I think. And I think one ball left, and it was like a 86 or 87 mile an hour exit velocity, and it ended up in the bullpen. So, that was a tough game.
So your stadium is a nice place or a terrible.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Darin, have you ever game planned based on a stadium layout, or is it just the fundamentals that you take into each?
Yeah, not the game planning is more based on the pitcher and then the actual like elements you're experiencing, wind, heat, cold, things like that, more than like the actual orientation of the stadium.
Yeah. What about the sun angle? Do you find that affects fielders?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, it affects, like I was saying, with the shadows and hitting, but also, if it's setting right in the right fielder's eyes and the ball gets hit there or something, and they have to deal with, working around the sun to try to catch a fly ball, and you see outfielders at all levels lose the ball in the sun, or
so it's mainly an evening game issue. Like middle of the day, you won't necessarily get that weird.
Typically no, because the sun's a little bit higher in the sky, and you can kind of work around it a little bit better, where like when it's setting and it just seems like it's a little bit bigger, and
that golden hour with the shadows
and then like another thing that comes to mind when we're talking about what, like the dusk time, when the sun sets and a fly ball goes above the lights, and you've probably seen like outfielders lose the ball once it gets above the lights, and you're like, how in the world did he like, there's no sun, there's not, and it's like, it just like there's a certain time of hour after the sun sets. It's mainly like a 10 to 20 minute time period, but like when the ball gets super high, you have no idea where it's at, and that's the tough one.
An interesting phenomenon.
Nice.
Maybe just as you're losing the sun, but also gaining stadium lights and adjusting to
it's tough.
How odd, but also makes perfect sense too, because it just, with games being so long, that you're experiencing a whole variety of weather conditions, sun conditions throughout the entirety of those few hours that you're playing. So when you're prepping players, the seasons, of course, change during the baseball season. But how do you prep for things like extreme heat, humidity, storms? And do you feel like players are able to stay sharp during some of those long delays that you're inevitably going to see?
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's definitely tough. I mean, yeah, with the heat, you can obviously try to stay hydrated and
That's it.
eat well and make sure your body's ready to go. But yeah, once you deal with stoppages and things like that, it's really hard to turn it on and off and stay focused. Yeah, as we said earlier, physically and mentally.
Yeah. This is, I think, a debate at least every series, probably some games too. Would you rather start a game later than stop it mid-game, or would you rather play ball and hope that the weather and roll the dice that the weather holds?
Probably roll the dice.
You okay?
Yeah.
Get it going?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially it depends on what you have going on the next day or the next 2 days,
Sure.
as when you think of it from a coach's perspective or administrator's perspective. But
Right.
but yeah, like we said with the Omaha Dome, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You never know when the storm's going to break up or actually hit us or for how long. So the more you can stay on schedule and on a routine for the players, I think the better product you'll get.
That's interesting.
Play ball.
Exactly right.
Darin says play ball. And we talked about this as well, but on the subject of just kind of the science behind, what makes baseball so unique and all the factors that contribute. Has the game changed since, was it in 2015 when they made ball bat changes? And has that affected how you interact or how the equipment interacts with the weather?
I think so. Would you say that the new baseballs travel a little bit better? Or?
I mean, yeah, the data shows
Mm-hmm.
it does. I think before it's called the dead ball era was before 2015. I think on average, per team per game, they were hitting maybe 0.25 home runs. Of course, that's an average. You can't actually hit a quarter of a home run. And then after 2015, when they put in the new ball, that's where I think teams were hitting half a home run per game. So it looks like it doubled, which, I'm sure you've seen that as well.
Yeah, I think they tried, at least at the college level, make the baseballs a little bit more like professional baseballs. And there was even a time in the MLB where they manipulated the ball a little bit or changed the way they made it or whatever and there was a 3 or 4 year period where home runs were up drastically.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, and then they went back. And when I was in Korea one year, my first 2 years, I think it was my second year, we had 6 guys hit 40 home runs.
Wow.
The next year they deadened the baseball and 1 guy hit 30 home runs.
Wow.
So
Holy smokes.
they went on the extreme there, but certainly the baseball has a big effect on how far you can hit it.
Yeah. So in this debate of the dead ball impact, real or overstated, in your experience and opinion, it's been very real.
Very real.
Wow. Okay.
Nice.
So do weather factors, though, affect the feel of new equipment versus old? Is there a way that, something you interacted with it just a little bit differently before some of these changes were in place, or has it stayed consistent from a player standpoint?
I don't know. I know that like now in college versus pro, you can use wooden bat, or you use wooden bats in pros. Yep. College use metal bats. For some reason, like this year, I think it's a rule, you can't like put your metal bat near a heater during cold weather games. I don't know, and obviously I think players want to do that because when it's cold,
helps you grip.
Yeah, grip, or just like it might help like the bat, like being warm might help it hit the ball harder or go further. So
it's just the way, it's always kind of like head scratchy in baseball too, where they're like, there's a theory that this might do that because maybe one time it did, so then you try it. Yeah. And then there is a handful of players that will, or folks who play the game, that will see if they can test that theory. It's an ongoing science.
Always.
It's baseball.
Always.
Don't as you're the one trying to coach up and hopefully navigate some of these really extreme situations too.
Exactly.
So before I let you both go, I wanted to get some final thoughts too. If there was one weather factor or weather consideration that you wish more baseball fans understood, maybe Brigit, let me hear from you first. What do you think?
I would say, College World Series, the danger of heat and humidity and kind of being out in the sun for those prolonged times. I know the left field, if you're sitting in the bleachers there, you're pretty much in the sun for the entire duration of the game and other seats within the stadium as well. So I would just say staying hydrated and being cautious about that, at least from a spectator point of view, because also people aren't just outside in the heat for the game. There's a lot of pre-gaming going on. So
tailgating,
and during those pre-games, you're probably not focused on drinking the water. So just pay attention to those things. That's what I would say.
No, good advice. And Darin, what do you think from the player coach standpoint? Something that you wish people just knew, because I know fans also have big opinions too.
No, definitely. Yeah. And the hydration is the main thing, right? The rest, the recovery, and hopefully, like most of the schools that make it to the College World Series have invested well in nutrition, in weight training and things like that to put themselves in that position to reach that level of baseball. And then once they get there, they have a good idea of how do we keep our guys playing at the highest level for as long as possible. So, because playing in 100-degree weather definitely takes a toll on your body. And And
there's nothing quite like that Nebraska heat too. Listen, I know it's hot in the SEC schools, Texas, Louisiana. I appreciate that. But there's just something about the Nebraska heat that seems to stick with you a little bit better.
It's a good pun.
And how are you feeling heading into tournament play then, Darin?
Yeah. Feeling good. We're playing pretty well right now. Hopefully we have a game against Creighton tonight, and Coach Services, I think last game in Omaha. So I got to play for him, and he's an awesome coach, awesome person, and really excited for the game tonight. Yeah. But next Wednesday we start Summit League tournament, and we can be anywhere from the 2nd to 4th seed, but based on 3 games we have upcoming. So we'll see. Hopefully we're the 2nd seed.
Yeah, I hope so too. The joy of the unpredictability of the game. Yes. Thank you so much for your time and wisdom for both of you too. And a reminder that you can follow Brigit on the Hurrdat One platforms for her weather contribution and insight as well. And remember to keep following Hurrdat One for more Beyond the Ballpark content.